Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Classroom Matters with me, your host, Christy Houle. And I am delighted to have Solomon Alexander on the Classroom Matters podcast today. Solomon is the works for the Sports Foundation and is the director. And Solomon leads the Musial Moments program that was inspired by the life and legacy of the great Stan Musial. The Musial Moments program was created to help schools and organizations foster kindness, character, and respect among young people. Solomon is a former teacher, experienced public speaker, and authority on sportsmanship. He motivates students to show kindness, integrity, and selflessness, just as Stan the man did during his illustrious career and life. Solomon, thank you so much for being on the Classroom Matters podcast and welcome to the show.
Christy, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so I'm excited to dive in for many, many reasons. So, as most of our listeners know, we fund our podcast through the Educate.Today website, and we have had the honor to work with the Musial Moments program over the last couple of months. So, I want to dive right in, Solomon, and first ask a little bit about your background and how that sort of translates into what you're doing with the Musial Moments program.
Well, my background is in education. I spent 10 years as a math teacher in middle school. After that, I transitioned to the Sports Commission, being their foundation director. And our foundation's mission is to keep kids involved in sports. And the vehicle that we chose to do that is sportsmanship, because we thought that if kids had a better experience, they would participate in sports and remain in sports. Most kids leave sports by age 13. That's usually 8th grade, because usually you can't be cut before 8th grade. And so once you get into high school, you have cuts. You have kids who really don't want to necessarily compete for, state and district titles, and they go on to do other things. And actually some kids do nothing, but most kids leave sports because adults make it no fun. That is the number one reason that our research has found that adults tend to make sports too much of a job compared to too many other things, too many war metaphors like battle and enemies and things like that. And kids just want to have fun. That is the number one reason kids participate in sports, is to have fun. And so what I bring to the table is someone who wants kids to have their best experience in sports. It is not about the trophy. It is not about the win at all, because you forget what trophy you won when. I mean, even the most avid sports fan forgets who won, the World Series in 1973. But they remember that moment they had with like their mom or dad when they were in 5th grade, or they can tell you who their favorite softball coach was, or who their favorite football coach was. Those people who really had the greatest impact on their lives. And so in a nutshell, I'm trying to have a positive impact on kids' lives. And so that's why I do what I do.
So you're talking a lot about kids having a passion for sports and kids loving the sports, and you've started working with the Musial Moments program. Where does your passion and love for sports come from?
Sports, in terms of a love for sports, it comes from wanting to have that moment. And if I could get a little, it's really it's deeply personal for me. Excuse me. For me, my greatest sports experience came on July 24th, 1993. I was at West Junior High in Columbia, Missouri. It was the finals of the Show Me State Games powerlifting championships. Now, I participated in other sports, football, baseball, track, wrestling. But that day was the last great thing because I won that day. I won in like my weight class, highest bench press, highest deadlift, highest total. But it wasn't that I won. It was that my mom saw me win that day. And it was a whole to do with that because her birthday was the day before. And when the team was going down, my sister called me. My sisters are several years older than I am, so they're adults and with kids and families of their own. And my older sister called me and said and asked me if it was okay if she came down, to watch. And I said yes. I said, but don't come without mom. And I remember saying it just sort of that matter of fact. And she brought mom, and my mom had known what I was into, but she'd never seen me compete before. And to win in front of her was the greatest sports experience I ever had. And from that moment on, I wanted kids to have that experience. It's not just kids doing well in their chosen activity, but them doing well in front of the people that care for them most. So whether it's weightlifting or football or dance or anything, I want kids to be at their best in front of the people that care for them most, because for them, those memories will never go away. After you can't find the trophy that you won because it's broken, after it's chipped, after the medals change colors and you don't really know what place it looks like, because quiet is kept. 15 years after you won a first place medal, it looks the same as the fifth place medal. And so no one remembers that stuff, but the experiences, the memories are what matter most. And I'm really motivated through sports to help kids create memories, positive memories.
Wow. First of all, thank you for sharing that. I think that it's really important for people to understand exactly how powerful these musial moments are for kids, and especially, listening to your story, how important it is for children to have their parents' approval, to have their parents be proud of them, to have their parents see them at their most shining moment.
Oh,
Like you
yes.
stated, means more to them than just winning the game. I've heard a lot of kids say, my mom or dad never missed a game. They were always there to support me, whether I won or lost. So that's really powerful. And so is that something that you're trying to accomplish with the Musial Moment? So tell us a little bit about what that program actually does.
Musial Moments, its overall purpose. Well, let me go back a little further than that. Musial Moments came as an offshoot of the Musial Awards. The Musial Awards are produced by the Sports Commission every year. And the show highlights the greatest moments and stories of sportsmanship from the previous year. It's a nationwide, it's a national show. It's broadcast on CBS now. And we gather what we think are the best stories from all around and really highlight what those young people have done. But not just young people. They can be young people, they can be older people, famous people, not so famous people. But in filming all those stories and in talking to all those people, that's a big production and a big to do. And it takes us a whole year to put each show together. Well, in between that time, the message though is that no matter where you are in life, you can have your own musial moment. You can have that time where you do something extraordinary for someone else. And so that's where Musial Moments came from. One of our board members, Dave Peacock, who's the CEO of Schnucks, said after one year show, hey guys, we should have this in schools. And it got us thinking, okay, well, how can we take the Musial Awards to schools? And we really put a lot of thought into it. And as an educator, I put a lot of thought into it because a knee-jerk reaction to just about everything is put it in schools. It's almost like, and I'm going to age myself here, it's like the old Chex commercials, give it to Mikey, he'll eat anything. Like, people want to always put everything in schools. Here, give it to the schools, they'll take it. Well, schools have a lot going on, and education is important, and you just can't put anything in front of kids. So we decided to take some of the stories from the awards show and package them around a lesson that includes the history of Stan Musial's life and his impact on baseball and society, and combine that with a positive sportsmanship message for kids that, whether they had ever heard of him or not, they could take that to their teams, to their schools. They could take that home and make a positive difference and make a positive impact. Because so often kids want to do the right thing, but they don't know what to do. When they want to do the right thing, they have to get money, which they don't have, and they have to get permission, which they don't always get. And what I try to do is say to kids, there are things that you can do, and here are some examples of things that you can do that don't require money and don't require you having to get the okay, from mom and dad. You can be nice to someone else without getting the okay, from mom and dad, and you don't have to raise a whole bunch of money for X cause to have a positive impact on someone else's life. And so we packaged all that up into a 45-minute assembly because I'm mindful of classroom time. That's about a class period, no matter where you go. And it's been received very well. We started it in 2015. And well, obviously because of the pandemic, we've had to take it inside with Musial Moments Virtual. Of course, that's where HEC has come in and been such an invaluable partner for us. And it's going really well.
Mm-hmm. So, our listener reaches all across the nation, all walks of life. Give our listeners, in case they don't know, and I know that might be a little hard to believe, a 60-second, who is Stan Musial? Why did we pick this for a Musial moment?
Stan Musial was the greatest Cardinal who ever lived. Stan Musial, the reason that we picked him as the example is that no one has a bad word to say about Stan Musial. And it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter if you're a baseball fan or someone who has casually heard his name. No one has anything bad to say about him. Specifically in St. Louis, almost everyone has a story that they've heard or something that they've witnessed relative to Stan Musial being nice to someone else, being a regular guy, and he didn't have to be. He would play catch with the kids in the neighborhood. He would pay for your bill at lunch. He always had time for an autograph. He always had his harmonica out playing for people. I mean, he was the type of person, the type of athlete that you wanted your kid to be like. It always doesn't have to be extraordinary, but you can be good to people no matter how good you are at what you do.
And so by the Musial Moments, we're not just talking about sports related moments. So talk a little bit about that, because some folks might be like, well, they must be talking about Musial Moment as like this wonderful moment in an athlete's life, or they've won the gold medal. But that's not truly what all Musial Moments are. Talk a little bit about
as
that.
A matter of fact, Musial Moments have absolutely have almost nothing to do with a sports related accomplishment. A Musial Moment can be, and I'll take one of our favorite stories. There was a young lady who was being bullied. She was a cheerleader for her middle school basketball team, and 3 players on that team decided to stop playing and went over to the stands to tell the fans to stop heckling her because, her steps were a little bit off. She didn't know all of, she didn't know all the words of the songs, but she was having a good time. And them standing up for her in that moment when no one else expected them to, it wasn't necessarily their responsibility to do that, but the fact that they stood up for her in that moment, that's a Musial moment. That's the kind of thing that we look at. That's the kind of thing that we highlight, because sometimes it doesn't matter if you're a young person or someone who's older. Sometimes we mind our own business a little bit too much. Sometimes we don't stand up for people when we can. And those young people stood up for their friend. They didn't wait for any type of coach or ref to do it or someone else to do it. They took it upon themselves to stand up for her, and that was a tremendous moment. And so those are the types of things that we highlight and we try to encourage kids to do.
And do you think that going into schools, talking to large groups of kids, because it's hard for kids these days. We all know that. Kids, and I'll age myself right along with you. Kids in this generation are growing up in a much different world than I could have ever dreamed of. And they have a lot more challenges in the world of belonging and kindness and showing those things for many reasons. So do you think that this is encouraging when you go and talk to these big groups of kids, that giving them permission, and I'm going to use your own words, to not mind their business as much as they do, to stand up for other people? Do you think that that's easier for them when they're hearing this in large groups, as a whole, as a school or as a class, that we all need to work together to do this and it makes it easier for them?
I think so. I think it definitely does, because kids need to hear that some things are okay. They need to hear that you're not weak if you stand up for someone else. You're not soft if you defend someone else's rights. It doesn't mean that you don't want to win if you treat others with respect. And you can not only say that, but you can give them examples of people who show respect, who show that they care for others, but still win. I think one of the mistakes in sportsmanship that's been done for far too long, and we're trying to reverse this trend, is that sportsmanship is a character trait of losers, that it has something to do with losing, losing gracefully or something like that. Sportsmanship is outcome neutral. How you treat people shouldn't depend on the scoreboard, because the scoreboard will always, sometimes you will win some and you will lose some, but you can always control how you treat other people. And so that's the message that we try to get out to kids, is that you can always be a winner regardless of the scoreboard. And they sort of soak that in. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful message, Solomon. So I want to sort of go into the world of sports a little bit. This program is led by the Sports Foundation, and
Yes.
We have seen a lot of transitions in the last year in the educational system, most notably with the sports. With districts having to shut down and reopen, it's been almost impossible for a lot of sports to continue. What are you seeing in the last year, the challenges and how we are attempting to transition back into some normalcy with sports since the beginning of the pandemic?
I think in the beginning, no one knew what to do, so we just shut everything down. And we probably should have, out of an abundance of caution. And then after a while, when you sort of let the science lead you, you figure out that there are some things you can do. There are some uncomfortable things that we've had to do, but they can be done. For example, I saw an entire high school girls basketball tournament be played in masks. And anyone who has ventured back out to the gym, I know I have, and your gym requires you to wear a mask, it is really, really hard to work out in a mask. I could not imagine playing a basketball tournament in a mask. However, that shows the resilience and the strength of young people in that they really, really want to play basketball. So in order to play basketball, and here's where kids are better at following rules than we are. We tell our kids all the time, in order to do this, you have to do this first. If you want to play your sport, you have to do well in school. You have to clean your room. You have to take out the trash, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. So they're okay with requirements. If you want to play basketball, you got to wear a mask. And the kid's response will be, okay, so is it a surgical mask or a Spider-Man mask? Either way, if this is what I got to do, I'm going to do it because I want to play. And the kids do it. And what we found is that sports can lead us in a lot of ways, because if young people are willing to do what's necessary to keep each other safe so they can play, we as adults can keep each other safe if we want to do the other things that we want to do that are not nearly as difficult as trying to play a full court basketball game in a mask. And like, not even like a high-tech sports mask, but one of those blue masks that come in a pack of 30. I mean, like kids were playing in that and they really wanted to play. So they did it. And so, so like, my hat's off to them. The difficulties that I've seen are some kids can only play sports within their school district. And if the district can't find a safe way to reopen, then those kids haven't played a sport in a year. And that's tough because we are talking about a lack of physical activity and all the things that come with sports, learning about teamwork and citizenship and being able to come together, to solve a problem, and all those things that we get out of sports. Kids have missed that for the greater part of a year. And it's going to be tough restarting all of that, but I think it can be done once everything can safely reopen. And, hopefully we can all get our shots and get masked up and do all the things that we need to do to make sure that that happens sooner than later.
Yeah, yeah. And we've seen an increase, and I want to go back to something you said about the percentage of students that stop or completely drop out or lose interest in sports. And I believe you said that it's around age 13
Yes.
that happens. And I'm sure now the numbers of students that were ingrained, heart and mind, body and soul into their sports. And then we're just left with nothing when the pandemic hit. We've obviously seen escalated numbers of depression, suicide among students that were involved heavily in sports and teams, and we're not allowed to do that. How do we encourage parents? What are some strategies? What's some advice we can give to these parents and teachers? Because it's really a lot out of their control if their school district gets shut down due to health concerns or safety of students, and their child is left without the school sponsored sport. What are some things that parents can still do to keep their kids active physically and mentally while possibly waiting for the sport to reopen or waiting for the next year of school to come around, so the child isn't just sitting with nothing else to do?
Well, a couple of things. One, get outside. Outdoor activities were some of the first things to reopen, and they've been open since last summer. So if you can get out and play tennis or get out and play even golf or run or do those things that you can do outdoors safely, even if it's not your kid's chosen sport, even if it's something new, that's actually good for them as well, because pre-pandemic we had a lot of kids who were burning out on their chosen sport because there was no off season anymore. You had kids playing football all year round. You had kids playing baseball all year round. Everything has a season, and it may be time to look at doing something else for a little while. So when your sport does reopen or does restart, that you're able to rejoin it with a renewed energy. the other thing is that well, this has to do with indoor activities. There are indoor activities that have been able to restart because safety precautions have allowed them to do so. My daughter is a dancer, and so they practice in masks. And what their instructors have done, because you don't really need to be in close contact to dance, each kid has been like dancing in their own square. So they've taped off like 6-foot squares for them to move it. But the kids love to dance. And so it's either do this or don't dance, and they want to dance. So they'll do what's necessary. I've seen that with, I've seen similar things happen in gymnastics, in martial arts. There's a way to reopen, and many sports have done so safely. And so it may be that time to look at, hey, maybe I want to try doing this for a while, because I do think that we are, I won't say nearing the end, but there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I agree with all of those. I'm just envisioning your daughter and her dancers taping off their squares. But yeah, you have to do what you have to do. And as a parent, I know sometimes that can be difficult. So all of our listeners that are educators and parents that have students that are struggling with that, be creative. Think outside the box. If your child plays baseball or soccer or football and it's not available to them at the moment, go for a walk, go for a hike, have them do laps, make something into a game. So yeah, I think all of those are great strategies, ideas, keeping kids physically active, mentally engaged, outside, again, as Solomon said, extremely important. So Solomon, I wanted our listeners to know how they can get involved with Musial Moments, how they can get in touch with you. How can we get these programs into these schools?
All right. Well, Musial Moments is 100% free to any school in the St. Louis metro area, and it is on a sliding fee scale for schools outside of the area. Musial Moments Virtual is available for any school anywhere that can access Zoom. I will talk to any group of kids. For more information, you can go to sportsmanship.org and read all about Musial Moments and everything else that the foundation has going on.
Yeah, and I agree with Solomon. It is a fantastic program. We have partnered with the Sports Foundation, with Musial Moments, with Solomon from HEC Media and Educate.today, and it is just doing amazing things. The keyword there, free for schools that are within the area, sliding scale for those outside. All of the information you can find on their website and also the Educate.today and HEC Media websites. And we will provide all of Solomon's contact information and links to websites and how to get involved with the Musial Moments program in the description of the podcast. So Solomon, thank you, thank you, thank you. The work that you're doing is vital. It's important, especially now with what our kids are going through, finding their Musial moment. It's just fantastic. So thank you so much for being on the Classroom Matters podcast.
Christy, thank you so much for having me, and best of luck to you down the road.
Thank you, Solomon. And this is Christy Houle signing off for this episode of Classroom Matters.